recording has officially started. So,
Okay.
All
hello,
right.
hello. How do I
Okay,
get
how's it going?
onto. How do I open up Whiteboard? Where do I go for that? Because I kind of want to write down
It's
notes
an
while I'm
app, no?
talking.
Call it being an app. This one, right?
Oh, yeah. I've never really used this, so. Oh. The Finders. I'm guessing that's what you guys want to talk about.
Sure.
Yes.
All right. So, so for them, they're trying to talk about enlightenment. How do I change the? There it is. So they're trying to talk about enlighten. Why is this being stupid? Stop it. Enlightenment, right? And people who have enlightenment. But the way they define it is a fundamental sense of well-being. Uh, Now I guess while reading the book, one of the big questions, and I guess I'll get this out of the way, is would I myself be classified as a finder? And I think chapters 27 through 30 was really kind of one of the clearer things for me, where it described how like there were people who were finders, and then they they stepped out of it for some whatever reason. Uh, and I think just the way that in my weird life, and not this hasn't been weird, but just the way that I thought, I've done finderish things, but have also stepped out of it as well. So it's kind of a weird thing where it's like yes and no. It's a very it's I see elements of it. Overall, I'm going to say no, at least right now. Uh, and I say that because, and I say that right now because the question is, I guess, what is no a finder? What do they define as a finder? What makes one a finder? Well, the big thing that makes one second. I am not very good with using this. I'm trying to make a stick figure. Oh, that's fine. I gotta make a stick figure anyway.
Yes.
Are you back?
Okay, give me just a moment. One of my sisters needs some help.
Okay. I'm making a stick figure right now.
All right.
I'll hold off until you come back.
All right. It'll be just a moment.
Yeah. I probably should have started a little farther out. Yeah, that's fine.
All right. I'm back. Let me reattach.
I make it transparent. Can I make it transparent?
Yep.
I don't think I can. Nope, I can't. Nope, I can't.
Oh, you've already made you already putting together
I made a little
a
stick
future
figure.
presentation.
It's just some of my thoughts, and I think it'll just help it be easier to understand and define. So, but I've never really used whiteboard, so I don't know 100% how to move everything around. But all right, so now the core fundamental aspect between all the finders that everyone kind of witnessed was all of them had a feeling of like of I guess living in the moment or being present, I guess. Like all that exists is now. All is now, right? So there the which direction should I go? So I guess I'll start with this. One of the first things I picked up on was that levels levels and enlightenment are different. They are not the same thing. Each level will actually have a different sense of achieving this living in the moment, which is why all of their different like which is why all of their different methods why they had so many variances, right? It's just that the from six and above, just from my understanding, six and beyond, the higher you go, the more consistent it becomes. Especially once you hit level 9. Uh, but it starts as level 6 is kind of the big thing, but it can happen at every level. It's just where your focus and priority is, because to the question is how do you create this sense of living in the moment? How do you create this sense of just being present in the moment and just being I am now? Uh there are a couple of different ways you can do that. Um so they mentioned meditation, right? Meditation is pretty easy. What meditation does is that it kind of allows you to focus in, and it forces you to kind of focus in on the now. Uh, and then not only that is that through meditation you're also able to kind of better isolate your own emotional states and better understand your own thought processes better because you're just sitting there focusing on everything. And then the thing with but then this comes the next part where there is a trick with meditation, and I'll just mention this now, but it'll make sense a little later, where you can, so like in therapy, one thing you can do that they actually suggest is that you take an aspect of yourself and you try to detach that emotion from yourself and like pretend it's a separate entity. So like you detach an emotion, right? And then you'll be like, okay, I I am not my emotion. That emotion is its own entity, and I am just a being that feels that emotion. that's kind of what meditation intrinsically does on its own. Uh, and then another way to hit this sense of enlightenment is when you have a sense of purpose. And this sense of purpose can be created in several different ways. But the idea is if you have an outside goal of that you're trying to fulfill or attain, uh, that will coalesce all of your everything around your life into that one area of this is who I am, this is who I'm going to be, this is what I'm going to do. So it can be individualistic, where it's like, I am going to be the richest man, or I will be the Hokage, right? Um, that's all you're going to be, and now you understand. But the most common way is when you do that with religion, right? Because if you believe in God, or if you believe in, or even Hinduism and Buddhism, it's a lot easier for you to say is like, I am here on this life. Everything I am today is just for a higher purpose or calling. All the pain I feel, all the emotions I feel, they'll all get washed away into the future. And so I am just a being living up to the fulfillment of God. And so, and then there's actually a third way. Uh, don't recommend it, but it's kind of ironic. Ignorance.
Hmm.
Ignorance is bliss. The less you know, the less you care, the less you have to worry about it. Uh, and all of these put together, they all have a kind of a similar through line, and it's the sense of detachment. Basically, the idea is, well, I guess it's a little bit more nuanced, but it's the sense of detachment of how the rest of the world is working and how your own emotions are working. But it's also, and it's going to sound paradoxical, and but there's also an idea of connection where you become one with the universe and understand how everything works and works together. So the reason why I drew this little stick figure is that the idea is to become one with your whole self, right? But even then, as you get further down the lines, like they mentioned, there's 1 through 4. They have 4 and then 5 plus. As you get further down the line, you can even detach yourself from your sense of I, and be like, I am not I. I I am a process of connecting parts that work together to live in this institution that we have in this sense here. Uh, you're just detaching yourself from yourself, and then it's just a and then if you to go deeper, you detach yourself even further, um, which has pros and cons, right? The One of the interesting thing about levels itself is that the further you get along, like if you go up to level 9, the further away you are from your emotions. And the reason why is because the better you are able to understand everything, the better you can intellectualize your emotions, and not just intellectualize them, but the better you can also respond to your emotions. So if you get angry, instead of being instantly lashing out, you can be like, I'm angry. I feel this sense of anger. Therefore, if I feel this sense of anger, I can either one, do something to prevent that anger, two, direct that anger towards something that can help me out, or three, pretend that anger is a separate entity and I myself am not angry, but the anger still exists. Or if you want to go deeper, you can just be like, It's is anger is a thing, and I am an experience that's experiencing the thing. Um, yeah. So I did find that level the way that the book describes the layers. The first layer I would actually describe as level 8, and then so when they say 1, and then when they go to the second layer, I would describe that as level 9, because level 9 is where you get to the non-duality, and the enlightenment from non-duality happens because what happens at level 9 is that you created so many possibilities that uh they start contradicting each other or mirroring each other, and then at that point, be it doesn't matter the fact that they start contradicting and mirroring, the object still is, right? And you do that with yourself. Like, you could be like, I am a forever being that is and isn't, but I still am. And so it's the fact that you say that I still am. That's why I call it the collapse of thought, because all the connections don't matter. Uh um so that's why non-duality was put in there. But I also noticed that it is possible to reach that sense of well-being, and it was kind of that point that I was like, wait, so many, you can technically reach a type of enlightenment at each level. So level 1, ignorance is bliss, right? If you're in a good state, if you're just feeling in the now, if you're okay with feeling in the now, then boom, you've like, imagine a dog who happens to find the perfect owners. That dog doesn't understand how the world is, but they're going to be happy for the rest of their lives, right? Isn't Wouldn't that be a sense of fundamental well-being? Layer 2, you trust in the Great Spirit. As long as the Great Spirit provides, you don't have to worry about anything. You can detach your pain and everything as long as the Great Spirit is there. Level 3, I am God. I am King. If I am king, then I have control of how I feel, and I can do however I want. Wouldn't that be the enlightenment? Level 4 and 5, I haven't quite figured out those. I think level 4, because of the sense of community, kind of uh, throws it off balance. Level 5, you can just be like, I am fulfilling my fullest potential, right? Level 6 is really bad about it because it has that. Um, Level 6 gets weird because breaking level 6 is kind of weird because you have that everything is everything mentality and nothing is mentality, but you lose that sense of identity. So there you get that sense of enlightenment because you're like, we are all love. And if we are all love, none of us really exist. And we all can just pretend to be well, not even pretend, but if we just let ourselves go and be one with the universe, we can just love and embrace each other. Isn't that like the sense of fundamental well-being as well? Level 7, the sense of fundamental well-being comes from like, I am who I am. I've gone through all that mental heartache. This is where I choose to be. This is what is right. This is what I believe to be. It's that sense of purpose and that sense of identity. And then level 8, the way it's achieved is, I understand myself. I know who I am. I I have gone through my trauma. I have figured out how to live. I have figured out how to create systems to be happy, to find that fundamental well being. And then level 9 is the non duality. Um, and I think the fascinating thing is how, what, and is, I guess, the personal story. When I say the pain is still pain, right? again, I've had elements of this. I've done meditation where I've been able to control my thoughts to the point where I could just be like, I am an entity now. I can even kind of still sort of do it. I just haven't done it in a while. I had to check and be like, can I put myself in a Zen state? It instantly relaxes and calms me. I feel calmer now. Um, uh, I just haven't done it in a while. But the and then I've also had that sense of purpose and that sense of identity. I thought I knew who I was. I thought I knew what I was going to do. I thought I could be successful in who I could be. Uh, I had the ability to like control my emotions to the point where I could be like, if I just reorient my mind state to the point of being the person I want to be, then I could live the world that I dream of. And none of that mattered. I even remember the moment. So again, in 2020, I had a pulmonary embolism. The reason that was so defining was that I was going to work and I was basically suffocating while going to work. And no, I part of the reason I did it was because like I can do it. I'll be fine. I've been able to control my emotions. I've been able to control my pains. And then all of a sudden, it just like I couldn't breathe. You know, I was literally suffocating. And I even remember the moment where that kind of snapped, where I was trying to pull out a bag of trash from a trash can, and I had to ask for help from someone else. And I had to be like, I can't do everything. I can't be everything. Uh, so it kind of snapped that uh, it kind of snapped that orientation of how to of just, as I mentioned, that like that even like non-duality couldn't save me from that. Like I was still suffocating. um and so I guess the which is why 27 through 30 was so poignant for me, because I've done it a couple different ways. I felt it in a couple different methods, and they haven't worked. I guess. So that's why I feel kind of conflicted. Um, uh, hmm. I think that was the majority of my thought processes while that happened, though. I guess, do you guys have any questions or any thoughts about it?
No, not necessarily, but I think I do agree with a lot of what you're saying, that what enlightenment is different from is in many ways different from levels. And this is an objection I was stating, which is that I don't feel like, and I think Odolev said something like this as well, if I remember correctly, that Ken Wilber's description of level 9
Yeah.
is in some ways, in many ways, kind of disjointed from the rest of his system. Those level 1 through 8 you go through, but the level 9, like, oftentimes describes like a state of being, and sometimes it's associated with non-duality, but sometimes it isn't.
Yeah.
Um, and so and so um, and I think even Odolev described Ken Wilber himself as potentially being, I think, what he called a spiritual 7. Like someone who was level 7 who had like the spiritual fundamental well-being experience.
Yeah.
I know level 4s. I know level 4s who have had this experience, like in church, like they'll do the conversion Jesus thing, and
Yeah.
they have this. Like I know a farmer, a wealthy farmer who lives right over here from me. I would describe him as a level 4 finder. Um, let's see, my pastor. I don't know. My pastor might be a level 7 finder.
Yeah.
And then those are two I can think of off the top of my head. My father, I think became a might have become a finder when he was level 4.
Yeah.
And so and so in and I understand with Odolev's map over here, and with your understanding of levels, the understanding of fundamental well-being, enlightenment, and levels are more or less, they kind of flow in and out of each other. But in Ken Wilber's model and Homath's model, I believe that the general description of what level 9 is and is associated with is not, it doesn't graft on quite so neatly with the previous late 8 levels all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say though that I do think that there is a correlation between them. But just because they're correlated doesn't necessarily mean they're the same. And it makes sense that if you're at a lower level and you find that sense of well being, and that all of a sudden you have an ego death and it forces you into the next level, all of a sudden you lose that sense of well being, right? It makes sense it why it breaks so often. And also, again, level 9, when you have all of the systems, when everything is nothing and nothing is everything, it makes sense, why that would correlate with the sense of well-being, because all of a sudden you feel like you are an entity of the universe and you are one with the universe and the universe is you and everything is one and separate at the same time. Definitions kind of lose all meaning. Uh, but uh, so yeah, so there is a correlation between them, but they're not the same. I think, if I think if I had to describe my experience, is that I've just kind of been in and out of it a couple times, and so it just puts me in a weird position where it's like I've been I've yes and no. Yes and no, because I don't, and not only that, like right now my end conclusion is that pain is still pain, right? uh Enlightenment, and not only that, is that enlightenment also, it's not an end all be all. I guess if you have a feeling of enlightenment or the sense of well-being, then you're focused on the present moment and all is now and how you feel inside. And if that's all you're focused on, does anything else matter? So like if the world falls apart and burns, if you are just an entity, right? Being part of a connected system of causes and events that happen to exist on a universe in this state of time, you know, then what matters if everything falls apart, right? So it's a weird case where after reading it, I actually like almost want to reject enlightenment because I don't think it has all the answers or solves all the problems, or I don't think it's the most, like I think attachments aren't a bad thing, right? Like feeling connected with others, one of my core things that I've been trying to make connections with people. That's also an experience to have. How you feel is also an experience to have, right? Uh so I get trying to detach from everything in that way isn't, I don't think it's necessarily healthy. And they even described this where there was a guy who was a finder that they said, and he said that he wasn't stressed, but then they tested his mood and his biorhythms and such, and he had tension in his back and all over his muscles, right? That's not, like, yeah, on the surface he was able to detach himself from how he felt, but those emotions were still affecting him. They were still affecting his body, right? It just, that stress just came out in other ways, right? And maybe he got good enough to where he was able to manage the stress to where it didn't affect the rest of his life, but his body still felt it. His emotions were still hitting him, right? So, and again, you can only live in that state for so long. To maybe it'll happen forever. You get lucky, but if you hit enough stress, something's going to crack, and eventually you'll break somehow. So So I guess the question is it healthier to live in that moment, or is it healthier to kind of embrace how you're feeling and accept? Is it healthier to accept like your past, your future, and the now, right? Is it okay to live with regrets? Is it okay to live with depression? Is it okay? That was one of the hard lessons I had to learn personally. Um, is that it was okay to be sad, right? After my brother passed away and I was working all the time, like I had to teach myself that like, and I actually learned it from the movie Inside Out. Funny enough, was that like sadness is an emotion. It's okay to be sad if you need to be sad, because you can't be fully well unless you embrace all the parts of you, right? So I don't know. That's I guess that's the question. Is it better to live in the moment and have this sense of enlightenment, or is it better to accept the depression and the regrets and be okay with the sadness? If you're sad, just be okay with the sadness. It's hard to say, because each person's experience is different, right? So, uh, uh,
INFJ loving sadness.
loving
Very
sadness.
stupid.
Oh man. So
And I might have some commentary, some questions or some points to make later. But Odolev, you've got something on your mind.
is Oda there? I'm not hearing him. Are you guys hearing him?
Yeah, I can hear him.
Yeah, I'm not. So
I'll recap real quickly. So he's noticed. So what he was commenting on was that you have you have mapped, like, you were noticing the incongruity and the somewhat awkward alignment and the correlation, but not the exact one-to-one correlation between, like, what they're described as enlightenment and then the level paradigm.
mm-hmm.
And he's stating that he's noticed a lot of those same discrepancies as well, and he has them noted in these two graphs over here in the chat.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let me. I guess should I pop out real quick, or because I would like to listen to it. Here, what if I just mute and?
Give Observer a moment. He's gonna try to hear you, Odolev. He's having a hard
Yeah,
time
I might
hearing
I
you.
might have to step out and come back in. So give me a sec.
Hello, 1, 2, 3.
Yes, I can hear you now.
You should be able to hear me now.
Yeah.
You can hear him.
You hear me?
Yeah, I can hear him now.
Nice.
Okay, fantastic. So let's lay this out. So for one, the reason why like the incongruities are the same way and Wilbur's notion of level 9 falls off a cliff and a variety of other things, the reason why all these ends up being highly incongruous with each other is because they're describing different notions of development,
Mm-hmm.
different notions of level, which I have, after a lot of consideration, realized that actually ends up lining up pretty nicely with a kind of progression of its own kind, which is, and this progression is what I have laid out on the first image I sent with the loop and the labels of ability and integration with the other labels to go with them.
Yeah.
Like the what the finders is concerned about is specifically experience ability development, which is
Yeah.
on the ability side, experience. It's actually it can be thought of as sort of being the first one in the loop that corresponds to a certain level. It's the most simple way in which someone can be said to be at a level, which is that they have access to experience corresponding to that level.
Yeah.
And that's what you're describing here.
Yeah.
And that's what the finders is also focused on. Like that's why location 1 is analogous to level 8, location 2 is analogous to level 9, and so on. They're actually experience ability versions of those levels.
Yeah. It's the, I guess, the emotional valence of it. So
Right. Right. And another thing to note is that you have heavily associated these notions of locations with the idea of emotional detachment. This isn't correct. It's not actually how this fundamental well being comes about. It's not so much that you end up filtering reality out, it's that your relationship to reality changes. It's not that you don't feel these emotions anymore or you try to find a way of suppressing them. It's that those emotions mean something different. If anything, level, if anything, someone at location 1, like the fundamental well-being you get at location 1 and upwards, isn't so much that you no longer feel sad. It's that you are okay with sadness. You embrace it, and in embracing it, you see it for what it is, and what it is no longer impacts you as severely because you're bigger than it. And you're bigger than all of the other ones as well. And the thing about happiness as an emotion is that it is sort of the default state of emotion, right?
Back that one up
It's
there.
the one that
Why is it the
occurs
default?
when none of the other ones are in play.
I'm not sure I agree with that,
It is the
actually.
zero.
is happiness the default state?
I definitely don't have happiness as a default state. My
I
default state is definitely like curiosity
I mean,
or something
happiness
like
is a
that.
bit of a strong word. I want to say
Yeah.
like contentment might
Yeah,
be a bit more
contentment.
accurate for
I
that.
would I would so usually I define all the two core, there are two core emotions, pain and pleasure. So I can say that the concept of pleasure would be the default state. So happiness is just a,
I wouldn't say pleasure is default or that pain is default. Those are both aberrations.
You
Like
can have both pleasure and
contentment
pain.
is sort of it's like the absence of either. You know, you're not pleased or
Ah,
hurting. You're just there, right?
I think
So quite often, in order to get people to simulate the higher valence that occurs with regard to the state of contentment, of fulfillment, right? In order to get people to simulate this, it's described in terms of pleasure, but that's an inaccurate description, right? Like it's not so much that you just feel happier overall. It's more so that your relationship to things like happiness and sadness and so on changes. Like
that one
it
I might
doesn't hit
believe.
the same way it did before. It's still there. You feel it. You can even embrace it and admit it to yourself. But the way you go about it means that it no longer consumes you alive in the same, like you don't have an identity to lose. You don't have this construct you've tethered your own experience to that you carefully curate experience around. You're not tethered by an ego, but you still have one. You still feel emotions and they hit hard. They do. And the thing is that if you sort of only view it in terms of detachment, if you only view it in terms of what is taken away as you go up the levels, of course it feels like you're going towards nothing and you're escaping reality and nothing means anything anymore. It's horrible. Because in describing what is taken away, you are not describing what is put in its place, right? Like these higher levels are no more thoroughly nihilistic, and atheists are inherently nihilistic, right? Like that guy could just believe in something else for all you know, and that's the idea, right? That's why I tend not so much to describe levels in terms of what they take away, which tends to be the case for describing higher levels, simply because not as many people are up there,
Yeah.
and so it's hard for people to speak from experience. Instead, I try to focus on what is available at those levels. What is there? What it can do? What you find? That's why I'm careful not to describe level 9 as this collapse of anything and everything, because it isn't a collapse. It is a blooming of a field of possibility far richer than what you find in the levels below it. It just looks like a collapse from the outside because everything that was there is taken away from the perspective of a lower level individual. It's not taken away when you're up there. It's just changing context such that it is moving outside the window in which it may be viewed by someone from a lower level. And that's also the case with the way the Finder levels works, right?
So,
It also ends up with this changing context.
yeah, changing the context of how to experience the sense of self, I guess. So,
Yeah. It's not that you stop experiencing it. It's not that you repress it. It's that you embrace it, but in a way where it doesn't overpower you.
I think that's probably the right way to do it. I think I just in the book I just saw a bunch of different methods that they were trying to isolate. So,
Yeah, I think the book is suffering from the same issue that your reasoning was, and I suspect that this actually goes all the way back to Wilbur, and like even before him.
yeah,
Like I think at some point it was established that you describe the higher levels in terms of what you're taking away because it's easier, and that stuck. And it sucks that stuck because it is a terrible way to think about these levels. It produces a lot of nonsense that it's important to sort of move away from.
uh well, I can say that my personal journey with them has not been exactly the best either. So most of my jumps have been actually kind of traumatic in their own way. So
Yeah, of course. It's a creative destruction, but that's still a destruction. It's just that you can only describe the destruction part. The creative part gets lost in translation.
yeah, yeah. So, but I guess there is merit in trying to reframe it in a more positive way.
Right.
Um, right.
Exactly. Like in framing in terms of the creation, the destruction is implicitly there too. If you only talk about the destruction, you don't know what's in its place. It could be anything. It could be nothing. And that's the issue. It's not nothing. It's something. And that something is worth talking about.
Reframing it in what they can get rather than what they'll lose.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a bad thing to look at, you know. Hmm.
Yeah. Like honestly, I feel like me moving to location one involved me letting myself feel a lot more things than I did before.
And
Yeah,
and
I've been
I was
trying to
going to
feel
come
more
in,
too.
and I was going to come in with that point at some point in the discussion. Is I would describe myself as being location 3 now, and I cry now more than I ever have since I was a child. Like 2 to 3 times a week. Like I just like the I just but it is. But I would also describe myself as being more joyful and content than I've also ever been in my life, including since when I was a child. Right.
Yeah.
and it's hard for me to, unlike Odolive, I don't yet quite understand how to encapsulate that in the models as well. But the the
I do have to
it
wonder how you know your location 3 instead of 1, I suppose. I
oh, I can
forget how
only,
you tell the distinction.
and the way it's like I can, it's like I feel like sometimes like I can, like it's like sometimes something like anger or sadness, or it's like all those old emotions, it's like they still have a sort of presence, but they are, it's like, but in some sense it's like they are a part of what experiencing them is what a part of what it means to be present. It's just to sit with them and to let them rise and fall and flow and be contextualized by the larger, I guess what Odola called the that larger sense of contentment, right? And it's like there's even a profound contentment, for me, I would say even a profound joy with being sad, with being angry, with
Yeah.
being like with the
Yeah.
negative emotions, and even experiencing them for some weird reason, it makes me feel joyful. So like I'll be listening to some sad piece of music and I'll just break down, right? And I just feel like it's an act of worship, like ecstasy. It's just like I'm
Yeah.
sorrowful, but the blue is yellow, right? And it's just all kind of like bled into like one mono emotion is the way they described it in level 3. It's like just one super, like for me, like a mono emotion. But for me, the experience has been the same. I would associate my symptoms most closely with the description of location 3, and I have felt
Mm.
more now than I ever have
Yeah, that's
in
the thing,
my
like,
life.
because that I can also say is the case for me, but I'm pretty sure I'm in location 1. I think you're describing sort of the impacts of construct awareness on your experience a little bit. And that's sort of the tricky thing about the location descriptions. They are really screwy. Uh, they can be made sense of in different contexts that allow for a lot of subjective interpretation. And I suspect it's also because they weren't too rigorous with how they understood these to be the case. And they didn't like reflect on, well, what does it mean to experience something, or what does it mean to feel an emotion in this or that context, and how does that work? Because that is precisely what ends up getting screwed with more and more as you move up the location. So the descriptions just get less and less reliable as you go up. It is what it is. But yeah, maybe you are location 3. I just don't know. Like I can't speak for you, but
No,
I will
Yeah.
say that like this idea of embracing an emotion for what it is and then finding a sense of satisfaction and fulfillment in doing so is something that to me was indicative of my move to location 1. Like I felt a lot more free thanks to that. Like I just sit with it and then feel great that I did, you know? And even in the moment. But the emotion didn't go away. It's still there and it's rather intense for what it is.
Yeah.
Whereas like the descriptions I've heard for location 3 is that this shit gets so stupidly instant that you struggle to distinguish emotions. But to me, they're all vivid, you know? They're all very detailed and complex. And if anything, it's the complexity that I tend to find a great deal of interest in the way I didn't before, you know? Before the complexity was just an annoyance. Now, now I embrace it. I appreciate it for the color it can bring to my life, if that makes sense. So
I'm
yeah, I don't know.
I'm trying to want to be angry. I miss being angry. I haven't been like really angry in a long time. So, yeah. So, while reading the
I could
book,
I
I was
could
getting
punch you in the
frustrated
face
and
and
I'm like,
make you
"Yes, I'm
angry.
frustrated."
Yeah.
So,
That's the thing, isn't it? I feel like I'm doing similar things to myself on some level, you know?
yeah.
Like
But
if I wanna talk sense to someone who's like really stupid and that can like work me up, sometimes I like seek that experience out just so I can get that feeling going again.
yeah.
But like it's not a healthy habit to build, so I'm trying to cut back on it. if I can help it.
Yeah.
It is very counterproductive.
Yeah. I'm just trying to feel the spark of motivation again and determinism. So
Mm.
I still have goals and visions and aspirations, I guess. So
Yeah, I mean, it's good to have those. I have them too.
yeah, I think one story I caught on in the Finders that they mentioned as well was how you could have. I think this was also part of the. It was interesting because they had like smokers and alcoholics. Uh, they interviewed them to become finders as well, or people who are depressed, and I guess it was just that acceptance of the vice, I guess. So, and if you just kind of instead of shaming yourself for the thing, you just kind of embrace it instead. Uh, and so, which I also thought was
Yeah,
kind of interesting as well. Just because, again, that's not necessarily a good thing, I guess. So,
man. At the end of the day, indulgence is indulgence, regardless of what level it's at.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's important to be able to watch for it. And if anything, a higher level perspective gives you a better vantage point from which to understand indulgence. So,
hmm,
like this idea that I can just be addicted to the feeling of arguing with people, it's like it wouldn't have been all that obvious to me like 20 years ago. But
yeah,
to be fair, it would hardly be obvious to any 6-year-old, but whatever.
yeah.
You want to worry about
Ah,
that.
man,
But,
you were able to argue with
Like,
people as
wait,
a
you know what I
six-year-old.
mean, right? Like,
I just got
it
beat up for
became
that.
clear to me relatively recently in my life. So, go ahead.
but I
Were
don't
you
know.
going to say something?
Avery.
No, I just said, man, you were able to argue with people as a 6-year-old. I just got beat up for that. That's it. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, I getcha.
Yeah,
Now that I think about it, I don't think I have, but for other reasons. Just like I didn't want to talk to people. People were stinky and stupid and were annoying, so I just didn't talk to them. That changed. Look at me now talking to people.
Yeah, we like
How
having
about
you
that?
around, so so much the better.
Appreciate it.
contentment. Right now, I'm thinking about what you mentioned about contentment, and I think I agree, but I don't think contentment is the right word. So,
Yeah. If you're looking for the right word, you came to the wrong guy. That's all I'm saying.
yeah,
We
because
don't do right words here.
yeah, because I guess the thing is that for me, contentment is a happy emotion, and that still would
Mm.
apply to a pleasurable sensation. But I understand what you're trying to say because it's kind of like how if you consider a lizard brain doesn't get happy or sad. It just kind of it operates more instinctual. And so if you ever get a pet lizard, it will never feel attached to you because of the way the brain is hardwired. It
You
only
never feel attached. Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't get emotionally attached, but it can see you in like a kind of like in a symbiotic way where because you are providing it resources, it sees you as a benefactor of that resources, right? But it can't get like attached emotionally, uh, like mammal brains. So, um, so yeah, contentment is like on one hand it is the right word because in that state, yeah, you are content, but it's also I think the word contentment also has different definitions that mess it up. So
Yeah.
I
I'm
think
not aware of a word I can use that doesn't have this issue though, so
yeah, I
I'll
know,
just
but
use
I just felt like
contentment again
I
as a better option. Just do the thing. If you have a better one, let me know. I
no
switched
no
it
no
out
no
already.
I
Contentment is just like,
yeah I think I'm just
was
mentioning
yes.
just to say I see where you're coming from. So
Yeah, fair enough.
yeah, I'm being specific just
Yeah.
for clarity,
I'm
I
just
guess.
using it as an opportunity to
well,
ask for some help on what word would be better. Because honestly, I'm not too happy about all these random words they come up with that or have to just be super abstract in order to mean anything. You know,
yeah, yeah,
the English language is just not serving me right. And I don't like it. But for some other people, maybe they know how to work it better than I do. So that's why I ask around for help for this
yeah.
sort of thing.
No, English is usually pretty good, but sometimes you get those kind of moments. But also, I don't think a word's been made for that kind of interaction either. So, because usually the word content gets associated with happy, and then but the kind of happiness is I won't say necessarily mild happiness, but like a mild prolonged happiness. And so like you just get a sense that everything is okay. But the problem is that the word okay also has an attachment to it of happiness. And so it kind of ends up being like kind of a circular association of happiness. But the way you're using content in that instance is not necessarily that, but it is. So there just isn't a word that exists for what you're describing. So, but yeah, I understand.
Yeah, I feel like I entered this domain of there isn't a word for what you're describing a lot in my thing at this point.
We're getting super
Learn
nuanced,
to
but
embrace it and just
yeah.
use a word in an unintended way and call it a day at this point because I'm not sure what else I'm supposed to realistically do.
No, no, no. I it's
Invent a new
well,
word.
Invent a new word. Believe me, I thought of it. Hey, just come up with a new gibberish word to call this thing.
yeah,
But I
yeah.
couldn't live with myself doing it. I just struggled to take my own ideas seriously after I gave it a stupid name, so I gave up on that idea and started expropriating existing words for my own purposes because it just, felt more intuitive to do so.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's like if you don't have a word, it's okay to use the word that's closest fit. You just kind of have to be specific about how you have to be like extra specific about how why you use the word and why it's the closest fit. So I did that with my color theory.
Hey, yeah,
I had to do that all. I do that all the time with my color theory. So
yeah. In
yeah,
fact, that's why I have these. That's why I have a few people that I make sure know my model thoroughly,
yeah,
so I can keep talking to them about it and develop the model with them, so they can come up with words or try to understand the words that I use,
yeah,
so I can test the new words I have in mind on them before anyone else, and so on, right?
yeah.
But
Well, the
that is a lot of effort.
another half of the problem is that if you use a word that people don't understand, then people won't want to use the system because they can't understand at all. And so if
And
people
that
don't
is
want to
why
use the
word choice
system,
is so important.
yeah, you have to use a word that's relatable. So if it's not relatable, then it's not worth it. So you're kind
but
of
if
just
it's
speaking.
relatable, then that means it has like a lot of colloquial usages at that point, which means it's going to be either, I guess you could say, it can be helped or hindered by the connotations associated with its previous owners,
Yeah,
right? And then
yeah,
good luck, you know.
yeah. I mean, there's no perfect system, but
Yeah.
rather
Yeah,
rather
you won't have
rather
fun.
somebody read it than not read it. You know.
In the point of content, to the point of contentment specifically, I feel like part of the thing is if we're going back to fundamental well-being and narrative self and concept egos concepts like that, I think the the that sensation of contentment is so positive in relation to most people's standard experience with their narrative self,
Yeah.
with their yeah with their narrative self, that it feels like a positive compared to that negative. And part, like, for example, Odile was
Yeah.
pointing out that the symptoms of my experience sound to him closer to his own experience, and he associates his experience with location one. The
Yeah.
thing was, though, is I came out from my experience through a dark night of the soul. I was severely depressed,
Yeah.
existentially depressed before I hit my. And so, to me, like the dichotomy is so jarring compared to my previous state, that the terminology surrounding location 3 resonates most strongly with me. But for all I know, it could still be location 1. It's just our lived experiences and the way we interpret the terminology associated is now so, you know.
Yeah.
And when it comes to contentment, I feel like it's like a more colloquial variation of the exact same thing. Like, most people are, it's like it talks about how some people shift into location 1 without realizing it for several months or years, and then they go, oh, something weird happened, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, because like like their narrative self and their feeling of contentment were close enough to where there wasn't a there wasn't a distinct, I guess, chronological breaking point for them.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, that was not the experience at all. It was very much the opposite.
Yeah. And for me, the that pain is still pain mantra, it kind of ruins any, like, it doesn't ruin all of it, but in the background I still have that memory. And so I'm just like, how do you get rid of the feeling of suffocation, right? So it wasn't fun. Um, so
The
it
feeling of suffocation.
yeah. So it's weird because it means that, like, I know what it's like to do those kind of things, and I can be content in scenarios and situations. Uh, but like, no amount of doing that could have helped me. So it was just yeah.
The very bottom of your pyramid of Maslow's hierarchy, that's like the very base, the foundation was being threatened. It was being shook. So everything on top of that was just all getting rattled.
Yeah, basically. Basically. So, which is why when I read it, I was like, I can't really associate with anyone here, but I also have had elements of it in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, yeah, yeah. Um,
Yep.
what else?
And with how unusual your personal experience was in relation to like a lot of the people in LC, that is why I wanted you to look at it, because I'm like, where do I put Observer? Like, where do I put his experiences, like, in terms of all these different models and systems and
Yeah,
people's testimonies and the anecdotes? Because it's kind of it is kind of wonky.
Estimates.
yeah.
Anecdotes.
A lot of my experiences are unique. So, uh, because my level 9 moment was like at level 6. I used meditation to hit there because I used to meditate a lot to help me work out. Um, I wanted to be nothing, and so I would say I had my first level 9 moment at level 6. But that's a personal moment, and if no one else can relate to, then am I really right? Uh, but then that every jump after that has been dramatic in a way, where usually every jump after that is like, either good or they recover pretty quickly. But mine was like really debilitating. So I don't know. It's been weird. So it's been really weird. Um, yeah. And so the life advice that I give to people is also kind of weird too. So
Sometimes. Is it like sometimes weird or is it always weird? Like,
uh, I would say it's always weird. I don't think people understand it when I say it, but it's just kind of how I see it when the situation arises. I've kind of mentioned it to Liquid. Is that like I've considered so many things, but I've also have all these experiences that, and I also understand that people kind of have to learn the lessons they need to learn in their own way. So usually I'll just be very like, I'll just give a quick response and just be like, "Hey, this is what you need to do," and and yeah, sometimes they live through it, sometimes they do it, sometimes they don't, but there's kind of no point in going beyond that. So yeah, yeah.
I see. I see.
So, but as I say, pain is still pain, but love is still love. Joy is still joy. All those emotions are still emotions. They're all still a part of you, you know. So, but what
I mean,
oh, continue. You can continue. I was just going to mention another finder thing.
well,
So,
what if you have like dissociative identity disorder? Then is it still part of you?
yes.
Like, but like, but you have dissociative identity disorder though. So, cause see, you're
It
dissociating everything from like one specific set of emotions. So
it
like that's the whole point.
well, it's like a virtual machine. No, every personality you create is still going to run off of a core computation, right?
Kind of like your dreams, right? It's like every personality is your dreams is you, but you don't necessarily in that moment identify, with them. But they're all sub, they're all like they're all like a subdomain of your own
But what if they're
personal.
like literally like neurologically like separate wires? Like what if they're literally like not connected except through like your motor skills?
Do you mean you as in like your ego,
Not
like your
not
sense of
me, but like a theoretical person who's like who literally has like two computational brains with the same like motor skills.
that was a high NE moment.
I mean,
I
you
So
you
so what so 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 that the what's going to answer that is the answer to that's going to be set, I think, primarily by a person's intuition as to what most reasonably constitutes a sense of identity or a you. Because that's the question, right? Is like, is it still you? And it's like, well, what do you mean by you? And then somebody's answer to what it means to be you is going to determine, I believe, like the most probable answer they're going to give to that question as to whether or not dissociative personality disorder is you or possession or malfunction or not you, and then how that plays out in ethics or court of law or mental health or whatever.
right.
I think it depends on what you're trying to do with it.
uh so I actually had a friend that has I have a friend that had dissociative identity disorder. So and so I actually tried talking to him about it, and all of his came up because of trauma. So they were all responses into how they were all created in response to the traumas that he had and how he had to live with life. And his trauma was just so bad that he he had adopted a new personality, and then basically his core self would kind of shut off while that new personality went into tandem. But again, that's the creation of trauma, which means it's an emotional experience that his brain is responding to handle the situation. So it's not like it didn't come
It's
from
like
somewhere.
a
So
it's like an improper looping. That's what you're
yeah,
saying.
basically. But funny enough, I think the a better answer is conjoined twins, because they actually do have two separate personalities, but they also share motor functions. So yeah,
well, well, if you have multiple different personalities, then what would happen is like, let's say they're completely separate, is that they would like grow dynamically. So like you could have a bigger personality and a smaller personality, and like your bigger personality could be on most of the time, but your smaller personality still grows and like changes and develops, and like it has different responses to like positive and negative things, like even if it's just perceptionism, where it's just like this thing good, this thing bad, but you don't know why. It's just like immediate pain versus no pain, it would still like dynamically evolve.
I mean, I think that's possible. I mean, but again, every person's unique, so I can't say.
But before
There's
we wander off too far, observer, you were going to say another observation you had about the finders.
I think it was something that I
You
had said
remember what it was?
earlier before, and so, but I don't remember. It had something to do with the stress. I think it was going back to the guy with stress, and I think I mentioned it at the beginning, but I think it was technically a repeat of something I said. But I think it was also, again, I've been through that kind of stress of not understanding or of controlling my emotions, but still being stressed. So I think that's just what I was saying. Um, I think the problem is that I listened to the Finders on audiobook, and so I wasn't able to take notes because I was doing it while at work. So I can't like go back and reference things that I thought were interesting.
The stress thing, that specific man, that was that was. Hold on, what was I about to say? The Okay, going back to your mantra that pain is still pain. Do you remember the portion where they talked about how oftentimes people who are finders had a much higher pain tolerance than the general population, and like even to some point they could feel like pain, and to some extent they could contextualize it, like just like Olev and I were talking about how we can experience certain emotions and they feel euphoric. Even pain sometimes can feel euphoric, but then they said no matter what level you are I think it was no matter what level you were, what location you were in the series, um, enough pain could shift you out of fundamental well-being and back into some kind of narrative self.
Yeah,
And so and so that's just an observation I had in regarding a correlation I see between you and your mantra, and then your association with enlightenment or higher levels of awareness, and then the
yeah,
reminder that pain is still pain.
yeah. You know,
They were like, "No, how high your awareness is, enough pain will shock you out of it."
yeah,
Well, it's
yeah.
awareness doesn't really have anything to do with pain tolerance.
Yes
Pain
and
tolerance is more about like endurance.
yes and no. You're right. Pain tolerance is dependent on endurance. Like you can train yourself to breathe underwater for 15 minutes. I think the record is like a half hour or so. It's like it's possible, but so imagine you have a traumatic episode.
Breathe underwater for 15 minutes. I'm
Oh,
sorry,
you're right. You're
you
right.
said
Hold
that
your
wrong.
breath.
I was like, wait, what?
If they breathed underwater, they wouldn't be able to live for 15 minutes. Um, but hold their breath for 15 minutes. Uh, so you can build up a pain tolerance. The idea of awareness is that the more if so suppose you have a high awareness, you're able to understand your own thought processes and your own emotions. If you have a traumatic event, what you can do if you have that high awareness is that you're able to isolate that traumatic event in a way. You can you can do two things. You can recontextualize it much quicker so that you can be like, no, I'm having this traumatic event and this will help me be a better person, or I'll learn a special lesson. So that traumatic event will turn into more of a positive. Uh that or you can kind of the other way to do it is that you feel as much of the emotion as possible, kind of dive deeper into it as fast as possible so that you let your body and brain process it a lot faster so that you can recover faster. um, so the thing is that if you don't have awareness, what usually ends up happening is that if you have a traumatic event, life goes on. No, depending on the individual, it changes, but like if it's really bad, it can stunt your progress and you can't do anything. You have a high pain tolerance, you decide to go forward anyway, but it still eats at you and you hold on to it for years and years and years and it never goes away. Um so
Do
it
you think it does like emotionally scar you?
yeah.
You just think like you endure it. You endured it, but it emotionally scarred you.
Yeah. Well, it's more like an emotional wound, right? So, it's like you're like walking with the limp for the rest of your life because you didn't heal it. So,
Well, it's you can't really go back to lower pain tolerance because like that's this thing about high pain tolerance people is that once you've developed a high pain tolerance, you continually have a high pain tolerance. Like that's just your status quo now.
yeah. I mean, it'll lessen, but like if you're at a 5 and you have the pain tolerance, if you have the pain of 10, like you'll never go down to 5, but you can go down to 7, you know, right? So like it'll go down, but you're right. It won't drop all the way back to what it was before. So people don't
It
like
can
being
if you develop. It can if you develop psychosomatic symptoms about it, like trauma. Like if you force yourself to push through, but then after the situation changes, like you mentalize how bad it was, like, oh, that was horrible, whatever, and then now you're like the soldier with PTSD, and you hear like a fork fall on the ground, and you think of battle and war and whatever. Now you're super sensitive.
yeah.
I think a lot of the same thing can happen. Like I've heard of a guy who was like he dealt with being beat by his wife for like 20 something years,
Yeah.
and and he was like just super passive about it and whatever. But then like afterward, like eventually they got a divorce, this, that, and the other. But then his pain tolerance like basically like tanked to like practically he's only super sensitive about like anything, that would get him. And I think that was less about the amount of pain tolerance he was capable of, and more about the narrative he wrapped around it, and then like the body keeping the score, and then kind of a trauma response.
So you
Yeah.
think there's like two ways to endure pain, and one of them is the way like I'm describing, and one of them is like a narrative thing, and
Yeah,
the narrative is like not as good as just like enduring the pain.
yeah, because going back to like MBTI, like I've noticed with the high SE users in my family, like my ISTP brother, my ENFP sister, my ESTP brother, their pain tolerance is insane. Like just the other day, like my youngest brother, he ran around, he hit his toe super hard on something, and he does this all the time, right? And then like faster than like almost any of the other kids, like he'll be backing at it again, and just like he'll even be like limping, right? Like he's just like so like just I'm going to push through that he just takes off, right? He just keeps on going. And then it's like for like me, like my ENFP brother, like we never, never, like never, like I have more pain tolerance now than I've ever had in my life, both as a product of the kind of the work I do, and now having a narrative reframing. Like now, when I do hurt for a short period of time, I am able to do kind of gain a feeling of euphoria even from physical pain. So like if I'm out there working and I hit myself with a hammer or I do whatever, like even the pain makes me feel really good for a while. Um, but that's more of a reframing, like a narrative thing, like a whatever that is. It's not what I would say is normally associated with what is stereotypically, INTP behavior.
Right. Okay.
And I just realized that there's a third way that awareness helps with is that you could have the kind of going back a bit is that you could actually have an over dramatization of the trauma. So if you're not aware of what happened, but then all of a sudden you create an idea of what happened that exceeds the actual event, all of a sudden the trauma actually becomes bigger than what it was before. So
Mhm.
um,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can actually mentally make it worse if you don't have the proper awareness. So
That's one of
Well,
the
okay.
that's one of the
Well, who do
paradoxes
you think should
with like
have
assault
more?
cases. like child assault cases,
Yeah.
SA cases. It's
Yeah.
like there's both there's the experience, and then when they get out into the broader society and they hear about the taboos and how bad it was, it's like that.
Mhm.
Then that even reframes the narrative, and it becomes bigger than it was previously.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, like, okay, hold on. What about like the difference between SI child and SI inferior? It's like, so if you have SI, then you have conscious ability over your pain tolerance. So like SE high SE users are doing it unconsciously, right? Yes, no.
I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with the I'm gonna go with the ENTJs because I know a few of them and I've watched them and I work with some of them. And something I've noticed about them and me when we're working together is I do generally tend to have a much better um awareness of how the environment is affecting me or how much pain I'm in, and I can, yeah, to some extent, quote unquote, manually decide to push through or not, but it does kind of take more of a mental toll on me. Like, but with the ENTJs, like my friend Timothy, it's like he has a tendency to deprioritize it sometimes to the extreme, and he won't shut down. Sometimes, like he'll go, like it'll be too hot, or he won't go without water for a while, or he'll do whatever because he's trying to like finish like whatever goal or objective he has with whatever like mental time frame he has in his head, and he's not even really paying attention to his bodily state until he is compelled to, until it's so bad off that he just needs to stop, right? And so I'm aware of C.S. Joseph's observations, but I do not yet know how to reconcile them with my own experiences yet. But I do know this that, and I don't know how much of this is like the Barnum effect, me noticing this in myself because I have access to the personality models, and I heard Joseph say that this is what we do, and I don't know how much of this is actually just because I am INTP and this is what SI Child does. But I do notice that yes, I do have, um, I do have an active and continual running commentary on the way the environment, on the way I feel in my environment and in my body,
Because
and I can't
for
turn it
for
up a little
me,
if I have to.
for me, because I'm not saying this because I have SI inferior, but this is the way like I represent it. Is that like for me, it's not a manual decision until it is the manual decision.
Uh, no chill,
Huh.
no balance. It's like it's all or nothing.
Yeah. Like it's basically like I'm going to feel extreme pain, or I'm going to push through everything. Like there's no in between.
That's why you ENFPs and ENTPs are always just so down bad when you're sick. You guys are the worst.
Down bad.
Yeah, you guys are the worst. You can be a cold, and you guys will just be like, yeah.
That's true. It's true.
Yeah. But I still think that pain tolerance is still pretty subjective. So it's hard to say if that's it's hard to say how much MBTI is related with pain tolerance. So you can really only make observational guesses. So, because pain tolerance is how well you handle pain is based on more on the experiences you've had, right? And if pain tolerance is built, then the more pain you've had, the better your pain tolerance. So, is it MBTI or is it your experiences, right?
Yeah, it's such a good question because I can imagine like a scenario like this. It's like suppose a personality type we might consider like ISTP was raised in one environment and like as a child, the moment they got hurt, the mother got all freaked out. Are you okay? Is it okay? Oh, they could be like
Mm-hmm.
a little scratch. And she'd be like, oh, that's really bad. Oh, we should take you to the clinic. Blah 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 blah. And like normally and normally, like maybe in and then okay, and then like in another environment we get like we get an ENFP or an ENTP,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then they get a it's like they they fall, they scrape their knee, they do whatever, and they're with their father, and their father's just like, walk it off, son,
Yeah.
right? And then like no panic, no whatever, no doctors, no making a big deal over it, unless you like you know shoot yourself with a nail gun, and then I the way they're going to relate to their pain to somebody who comes at it with like an MBTI model is going to be rather confusing, right? It's going to subvert expectations if you come in leading with ISTPs will have better pain tolerance than an ENTP, and it's like, well, potentially all things being equal, but you can't even really. It's not easy to test that because it's like when whenever are all things equal, so to speak. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah. So like my thinking when it comes to MBTI is that S users, just sensor users, would have higher pain tolerance. Well, not necessarily higher pain, but they would feel the sensation of pain more instantaneously because that's their main function, right? So basically, the more further away you are from your senses, the higher the pain tolerance theoretically. Uh, but if you're able to feel the pain more instantaneously, you're able to also understand the pain more instantaneously, and therefore you're able to deal with the pain more instantaneously. And so, therefore, you could build a tolerance faster because you're understanding it more instantaneously. So, there's also that argument. So, it really depends on the individual. And if N is more detached from pain tolerance or from pain because they're in their heads more, that they also have systems to be able to imagine the pain. Like for me, I'm an INFP, right? One of my superpowers, I guess, even as a kid, uh, INFPs are the most empathetic type, generally. And the reason why is that if, for example, somebody has a paper cut, I can imagine what that paper cut would feel like to them, right? Because I've had a paper cut, I can recreate the sensation of the paper cut where it was and be like, "Oh, I feel a shadow variation of this paper cut here even though I don't have one, and therefore I understand how they are feeling." Right? Uh and that's a way that I could theoretically create a variation of pain tolerance, right? So, by just recreating pain scenarios. Uh,
Simulations in your head, experiencing them, and you get like a shadow boxing training kind of.
yeah, yeah, right. So, you know, but again, that's a simulation. It's not real. So reality is often very different. Uh,
Well, even then, it's like there's disassociation and depersonalization, right? And it's like that is a
mm-hmm.
super effective way of dealing with pain. I've noticed for especially for more. I don't know. I don't know how sensor types. How I don't know if it's those that we generally consider to be sensor types are more or less capable of doing that. But I would imagine my intuition is that an intuitive would have an easier time kind of disassociating in that way.
Yeah, yeah. So so I think it's the easier question to ask is how different types deal with pain, but how different types build pain tolerance is more complicated and adds a lot more variables, more variation. It's really hard to say. So,
Mm-hmm.
And even then, like, it's still speculation. MBTI isn't an exact science, so yeah. It'll always be. Is it nature or nurture?
You guys seen Invincible?
Say again.
You guys seen Invincible?
Invincible.
Yeah, the TV show.
I don't believe I have.
I've seen the first two seasons. I haven't seen all of three.
Hold on, Omni Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, Omni Man. Yeah.
Clips, only clips.
You made me
Only
do
clip.
this.
Tell me about it, Avery. What's up? What are you thinking?
Well, I was thinking. Okay, so I googled what type of Myers Briggs type is invincible. It says the ISFP, right? And then I googled what type are the evil invincibles, and it said ISTP, ESTJ, ENTP, INFJ, and INTJ. And I'm trying to like figure out which one goes to which.
Yeah.
So, this is fun for me. I enjoy
Yeah.
It's fun. Like me, I just watched. Me and Zian, we just watched Princess Mononoke because Cam Dad's been recommending it to us for months. So we watched it together. We typed most of the characters. We're like, which archetype do they most closely resemble? You know, and then like the protagonist, we typed him as ISFJ. The lady at the Iron Foundry, we typed her as the NTJ. And then the guy with the sandals, who's up to mischief, we typed him as ENTP, and typed a few other people, but those are the three main ones. And then when I came to talk to Cam Dad about it afterwards, I was like, all right, like we watched this show you recommended, and I was like, so he asked me, what we thought about it, and I was giving him kind of the play by play, and I was like, and so ENTJ lady is like the one from Iron Time. I'm like, yeah. And then I was like, and then there's that guy with the sandals, the ENTP, and like he knew, he had the same archetypes in place. So like the protagonist, and then before I said anything, he was like, yeah, ISFJ. I'm like, yeah, ISFJ, right? And so they were close enough to like the stereotypes that we understood for us to, but it doesn't always happen. I would say, for example, we were talking about Death Note, and I typed light as ENTJ, and then L as INTP, and ChemDad had light as INTJ rather than ENTJ, and he did agree with me on L. He was like, L, he doesn't think is INTP, and then he gave me his reasons for why he thought light was INTJ rather than ENTJ. And but it was still close enough to be like, So sometimes, like I'll see an archetype and I'll be like, oh, I think this one is whatever, and then Kim Dad or Zian will be like, no, and then I'll give an entirely different type, right? And then it's just like, I don't know what we're seeing, Let's talk about it. But, yeah.
And analyzing people is fun. So it's like people watching, but different. So no, observing behaviors.
Oh no! Don't do this to me.
Avery, if you get the chance, you should read this book.
Hey, Odolev.
See you, Odolev.
If I get the chance, what?
Oh, you should read this book. You should read it with us.
The Finders?
I mean, sure, but no, the one that I'm sharing right now.
Oh, okay. Influence, psychology, and persuasion. Okay. Yeah. Do you think I'm good at persuading people? Because I don't think I'm very good at persuading people. I think I'm really good at annoying people.
No. But, I mean, it'll be helpful. Maybe it'll help you persuade people. But
I can persuade people to do things, but only if I'm going into the conversation knowing that my end goal is to persuade them. Otherwise, I don't want to.
Even then, you're only good at potentially persuading some other thinker types. I don't think you're good at convincing feelers.
That's where you're wrong.
I don't think
no.
Can you?
I lied. I can. I definitely can.
Okay.
Actually, feelers are the easiest to persuade
Okay.
because you don't have to give like any specific reason. You just need to say like key words in a specific tone of voice. It's just lying.
Okay.
I don't
Mm-hmm.
like to lie, so I don't do it very often. But yeah, no, it's really easy.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Remember how I said that ENTJs can be the most manipulative and the best at persuading people? Yeah, you just have to say the right words and say the right
Oh,
things.
that's
And
right. Yeah, yeah, you're right. You're right. You're
yeah,
right. You're right. You're right. Yeah, you did say that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Azula
that's true.
Azula's the like the best example of that. So because
Right.
Azula always
That's
lies.
I really hate people who do that though, like with a burning passion, because I can tell when you're telling me something, but you're not actually feeling an emotion. And I feel like everyone should be able to do that, but the fact that everyone can't like blows my mind.
Actually, the fact that you can is impressive. So
It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be impressive. I've been able to do it since I was like 2. Like
yeah, that's
it's so easy. Like my brain actually will like I don't feel like the word is like what they're saying is a lie. I will literally have like a voice in my head go lie.
yeah,
Like it'll just straight up go lie.
yeah. No, that's yeah, that's not a lot of people have that. So yeah.
Yeah, I had a
So
friend.
I don't
And he
know if
was
that I don't know if that's an ENTP thing or just a special Avery thing,
I don't know. But
but
it's I had a friend and he was like we were talking about something and then at some point he just goes, I would never do that to you, man. And I just go, you're a very mediocre liar. And that's where the conversation ended.
yeah, yeah. No, that's interesting. Usually the best type at catching lies, if you're going that route, is the INFJ, theoretically. Um, the ENTP theoretically would be on the lower end of that list. So
Why?
it's the way that the NENTI stack. One, TI is very thinking. It's not emotional. Two, NE is about possibilities. You know, so you're if somebody does lie, you're that NE is going to be like the most. Yes, they'll be like, oh, that's probably not right, but they'll also be like, but it also might be true. You know, it's more like they out possibility themselves. Um,
You have to
three,
you just have to use enough TI that like it
that's
doesn't matter.
And here's just I don't know, it could be confirmation bias, but just an FYI is that in socionics, the 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 four of us who have TI, NE, SI, FE in our top four stacks are called the alpha quadrant, and the alpha quadrant are associated, at least in socionics model, as being by default tend to be the most trusting types, like the least likely to be as I guess cynical or suspicious of people
Well,
and their
this
motivations.
is well, I was watching basically like the reason ENTP becomes cynical is because they continually do things and then get socially punished, and that develops like a
Mm,
streak of cynicism. And
through
the
experience.
stronger this streak of cynicism is, the better at detecting lies they become.
oh okay. That makes sense. So it's the experience that it's the experiential nature, not necessarily
Well,
the brain patterns. I guess
well,
it's the nurture, not the nature. So
you are relying heavily on the TI to like understand whether or not something is a lie because you're gonna you're gonna analyze the motivations of all the people from what you understand,
yeah,
and then you're gonna decide, is it in this person's best interest to do this? And if I were an individual who was someone like them, and even like let's just assume like you're someone. This is gonna sound really dumb, but someone that you like want to have like all of their best interests at heart. That is like FI driven.
Yeah.
Like you can do that with your NE. You can be like, if I was a person who was FI driven, what decision would I make in this situation?
Yeah.
And then your TI can break that down, and then you can figure out whether or not it's a lie.
Okay. So it's not natural. It's you have to do
It's
a
a
couple.
developed cognitive thing.
Yeah, you have
Yeah,
to
and I
do
do
some
it.
workarounds. But
And I do agree. It's like with TI is like the cleaner, it's like the more experience you have, and the cleaner your input. It's like garbage in, garbage out, right? But then
Yeah.
the reverse is also true. It's like treasure in, treasure out. It's like the cleaner your inputs
yeah.
through your experiences, exposure, your models, and
Like,
the accuracy with which you map that onto your real life experience is going to determine the quality of your outputs.
right.
So
And
yeah.
I do believe that the ENTP starts incredibly gullible.
Yeah.
Like unbelievably gullible.
Yeah.
Probably the most gullible of any of the types.
Yeah.
Like I think ENFPs, because they have like FI feeling, the FI is gonna like make them stop and like ponder more, especially at the beginning. But I think like the longer the ENTP lives, the better they get at breaking things down. And then like they're able to basically like input so much information through such a like purified lens that when they get older, they're able to do like a lot more.
I think you're right. I've noticed this with my father and my brother, who are both ENTPs, that they tend to have they at this point in their lives they do tend to be really good, have a really good intuition for being able to sort out people, their authenticity levels, whether or not they feel like they're being truthful or not, and but both of them do have a lot of experience now. So
Right. But like that's kind of the reason why like schools are important for like children and like making sure they're safe, specifically for ENTPs, because ENTPs are like very easy to like prey on. They're very stupid.
I think just trusting, optimistic, ready to say yes, kind of jump in with both feet, believe the best in people at the outset, anyways.
Right.
Yeah.
No. Right, well, I'm gonna hop off, but it was good talking to you guys.
Hey, likewise, always a pleasure.
Yeah.
Good night and Godspeed.
Yep. Good talking to you.
And then there were two.
And then there were two. And there we go. How's the conversation been so far? Have you enjoyed it?
Immensely.
Mentally? That's good.
Immensely.
That's
Had a blast.
Was the conversation on the finders was that decent for you? Did you have any other questions or thoughts?
My questions are there any more nuances, aspects, anything that you've thought about regarding Odolev's observations, your own observations of his observations, that you wanted to circle around? Is there anything you want to still chew on that you're not quite satisfied, that you just kind of want to munch on a little more?
I think he did call me out on me being able to like the experience spiritual ability to describe it. I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. But I think I see where he's getting of trying to describe the I guess the layer jumps of what you gain rather than what you lose. I think that's not a bad way to look. Instead of it in a way in salesmanship, you want to you want to tell people the good things. You don't want to tell people the bad things, right? So being able to structure every level in a positive frame instead of a negative frame is helpful in the fact that of seeing what you gain instead of what you lose. That can actually help people move up levels. I think overall, I didn't mention this because it just kind of went. But the way levels are is that you'll never be able to go up unless you lose something, right?
Mhm.
And I think the problem is that if you try to go up without if you try to go up without the knowledge that you're losing something, are you actually going up, right? Because you never
Mhm.
lost it. So does that are you remember there's a difference between being able to understand how a level operates and actually integrating and being the level. And the thing is that in order to actually move up the level, you have to lose those parts that are preventing you from integrating it. So there's going to be a loss in it, but if you just say, "Oh, I'm only gaining," then are you actually integrating it, right? Uh, it it was a common occurrence with level 7 individuals in the old LC server,
Yeah, I
right?
saw it. I saw it.
Right, where they understood the higher levels, they could understand the higher levels, but the way they spoke, the way they talked with individuals, the way they asserted their ideology, and that was the big thing. It was from a very level 7 mindset, right?
Mhm.
Um, so
Their need for everybody to know that they were level 9, like the need for that external validation,
yeah,
that clout. Like,
hmm yeah. So I I do think that I do think it's good to recognize what you do gain from it, which I think that's something that I've been lacking because I do think I've been focusing a lot on what you lose, right? Which slants a lot of it negative. But I think it's also important to also recognize that you need both, right? Integration requires the whole self, I guess, and if you want, the yin and the yang. Um, uh, oh, there was something else, but I had to finish that thought, and now I lost it. Um,
you were saying, okay, you were mentioning the salesmanship, the positive, the negative, and there's like no pain, no gain. It's like if you don't have the pain, do you really get the gains?
yeah. Uh, it was a completely different subject around what Odolev mentioned. Um, so it didn't even bother with that section. Um, I think. This is different. Uh, I think I've learned that enlightenment. I guess having the sense of contentment. I'll call it that. Um, I still don't think it's fully all that cracked up to be. I guess. Um, because I guess it was frustrating because in the book it sounded like a lot of the people who found that sense of fullness and well-being that they kept repeating. Uh, it was more. It seemed like it was more driven from not necessarily contentment. Like it was contentment, but how that contentment was created varied. And so I think Odlev's answer of how to reorient your emotions, I think that was the right way, right? But I don't think everyone that they interviewed who did it that way. And that was
No,
kind
no, they didn't.
of,
And
right.
not all of them would agree that that was the right way. They're like level 4, location 4. People would have said no, that's the wrong. Some of them were like, that's the wrong way. You should do it like
Yeah.
this and detach from. So you have all these sub schools of
Yeah.
enlightenment fighting with each other. Some are
Yeah.
like, kill the emotion. kill the ego, integrate the emotion, integrate the ego,
Yeah.
and it's like, and I'm sure a lot of that is projection from different personality types, different nurtures, different natures, different religions, etc.
Yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah. And again, there so I don't think I was necessarily wrong when he brought it up. Because contentment is finding contentment is the answer, I would say. But if you're going for like the sense of fullness and well-being, that's not exactly the same as a sense of contentment. And so the ways that I mentioned have all those drawbacks, right? The sense of contentment is probably the most consistent and well-rounded version, the safest and most well-defended version to be able to maintain it for as long as possible, right? Because just
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
right.
Yes. Yep.
So
Yep.
so not to
That's my
say that
intuition as well.
yeah, yeah. So not to say that you can't have different. It's not to say that you can't have different variations of that sense of enlightenment, but the sense of contentment that he talked about is the best one. And I'm kind of paraphrasing just for clarity, I guess. Um, while the others can achieve it, they have massive drawbacks, which comes from how they are creating it, right? So if you detach your emotions, the emotion doesn't. The emotion still goes. It still exists,
Yeah.
right? Um,
I feel like level. I feel like locations 1 and 3 are the most sustainable long term and have the fewest draw. And because they have the fewest drawbacks societally,
yeah,
they're the least likely to get. Okay, and I still generally associate the experience I have more closely with location 3 than I do with location 1. Though I see where Odolev is coming from.
yeah,
It's like the way I currently construct the narrative around what happened to me around on the 4th of July was I hit location 3 and I might have been doing something that was pushing me up towards location 4 because I felt like I was floating away, like my
yeah,
emotions were just being like pure, like just cleared out, right? Like
yeah.
just neutralized, right? And there's just this feeling of like eternal, like just like stateless zen, right? That
Mm-hmm.
was, and then things happened with Zien and things, and I told you I felt like she brought me back down to earth, like she grounded me like back into my humanity.
Yeah.
And the way I construct that is it's either I was moving to it's one of two ways depending on how you want to construct these
Yeah.
models. It was either I was in location 2 heading into location 1 heading in location 2, and
Yeah.
she brought me back into location 1, and then my natural INTP is not really being bothered by anything emotionally anyways, kind of layered on top with my Christian theology makes it feel like like a imitation location 3,
Yeah.
or I hit location 3 and I was moving up into location 4, and then she pulled me back into location 3 because I feel like locations 3 and location 1, that feeling of contentment, that actual experience of
Mm-hmm.
emotion, still having some concern left for for how you appear in society and like social norms.
Yeah.
And it's like if I stayed, like if I went like to location 4 above, what would happen is um I've already started interacting interestingly with like some of the customers and the things around here. And
Mm-hmm.
when I go to Lowe's, like a lot of the FE social mask has just dropped to the floor and I can't pick it back up.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm becoming increasingly eccentric, and I can't, nor do I care to stop it. And I'm like, if I went
Right.
even further, it was like it would get even worse. Eventually, that would affect my finances. It would affect the way I'm getting along with my siblings. It would
Mm-hmm.
affect my relationship with the end. It would affect, and that would create stress levels. That would create pain, certain amount of discomfort.
Yeah.
And unless I move to the path of freedom rather than the path of humanity, unless I cloister myself in a monastery, the
Mm-hmm.
pain is just going to keep stacking and stacking, and then it's going to potentially push me out of that state again, and then I'm back into the narrative self.
Yeah.
And so, unless you're going, here's my intuition. It might change as I get older, as I get more experiences, as I read more books, as I talk to my weird INFP friend here some more. But it's like my intuition now is that states that contain what we're calling quote unquote contentment, actual emotions, and that states of fundamental well-being that allow you to be content with pain, with sorrow, disappointment,
yeah.
whatever. I'm like, those states be active in society, and if you want something that's most likely to last, and if it's predicated on a solid foundation of actual previous levels, like you've actually done the work at level 1, you've done the work at level 2, you've done the work at level 3, level 4, level 5, level 7, like you've actually moved up the levels and integrated, like
Mm-hmm.
both spiritually and philosophically into your state of well-being. Like it wasn't like a psychedelic trip, it wasn't you doing weird voodoo stuff, it wasn't a prayer to Jesus, it wasn't like
Yeah.
it was actually like you've actually put in the time. As like, so first you put in the time, and then you Jeffrey Martin emphasized this. He was like, select a fundamental state of well-being that works the best for you in your current situation, because if you do too much,
Mm-hmm.
he was like, less is more. He was like, when it comes to enlightenment, he was like, less can be more. Be careful, because you can
Yeah.
really. He was like, people were rich and they threw it all away. Like, people had marriages that were fairly happy, they threw those away. People abandoned their
Yeah.
kids. Like the Buddha. Like the Buddha took off, right? He took off and he left his family behind. He left his riches behind.
Yeah.
And it was like, and they were like, it was like the difference between fundamental well-being and not fundamental well-being for people is so drastic. He was like, that it's you reach the point of diminishing returns. Like, you get greedy reaching for more, and sometimes it can backfire.
Yeah.
And so I feel like for people who haven't done the work and who reach too much,
Yeah.
like Ikarius, they get too close to the sun and they risk losing it.
Losing everything. Right.
Yep.
So, um, you know, it's kind of what I say again. You know, pain is still pain, right? Um, and it's also kind of a response to, like, funny enough, Luffy, you know, in One Piece, where his goal is he wants to be the freest man. Um, I guess the having that sense of well being does, like, there are still systems. Part of the reason we have nice things is because people don't have that sense of well being, right? Um, so I guess, and how much are you willing to suffer to maintain it? I guess that's the other half too, right? I don't think people recognize that part of the reason they can live in that kind of framework is because they're able to live in a place or society that has that kind of framework. If you're homeless as a bum living in the slums, it's are you going to be able to maintain that sense of well-being, right? How much hunger can you experience before like maybe you're the one who can go beyond and defeat all the odds, right?
Yeah, because there have been a few, right? Like
Yeah.
Viktor Frankl, like a Catholic priest.
Mm-hmm.
There was a Catholic priest in like one of the camps. Like, he was singing hymns while he was starving to death. He was just like, "This is awesome. This is great." Right? And he
Yeah.
started a church revival while he was dying. Right?
Yeah.
So you get those weirdos, right? But I do feel you're right. I do feel like unless you have a very okay, and this is where I feel like the framework of that suffering is important, because if like you're a finder, but okay, it's like, so he was like maybe a level 4 finder, right? And so he had the Jesus, everything,
Yeah.
God, whatever is like everything happens for a reason. Jesus died on the cross. Suffering
Yeah.
has purpose,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so he had a way of transmuting that pain into purpose, right?
Yeah.
It's like, but suppose
The
you
sense of
were
purpose,
a
right?
Buddhist. Suppose you were a Buddhist monk level location 6
Mm-hmm.
finder, right? And then he throws you into the concentration camp, right? It's like, do you have a narrative self? Do you have a model of framework where you can alchemize your pain and keep your sense of contentment, or is that kind of pain gonna is that enough pain to pull you out?
Yeah.
Pull you out of
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Right. That's always the biggest question: is how much pain are you willing to endure to ensure your philosophy, I guess. Because, you know, as another thing I say is that not necessarily action speak. A philosophy is only as good until action is applied. So, thinking, or you learn more by doing than by thinking about it. So, for some reason, another example is I've been getting a lot of psychic videos on my feeds where people post about psychics and they're like, I'm a psychic who can speak to the Galactic Federation of these spiritual beings and these entities through remote viewing. Or there's one person who said, I am actually a messenger from Andromeda. And I'm like, and I have been sent here to help the world, reign in the new earth and spirit of spirituality, right? And they're speaking in a way that sounds like they have the sense of enlightenment and the sense of peace and love and joy, but again, we live in a society, we live in a series of systems. How much of that crumbles and falls apart when we don't have anything? So uh and and to counteract all of that, if you have the sense of contentment, doesn't matter. Right? uh and I think my conclusion after reading the finders and from my life experiences is that attachments are not a bad thing. Um, uh, like, we have families, we have love, we have joy, we have systems, we have rules, we have processes. And part of this is some of the conversation I've been having with Regent as well. That's where I came with the detachment, because he says that to find happiness, to go move up into level 11, which I still don't 100% agree with, but I have a better understanding, is that you have to kind of say let go of your narrative self, but also not even let go of the narrative self, let go of the thinking process that is creating that sense of self, and you have to let go of your attachments to everything in life. You can't even be a like don't have like let go of your attachments to even the concept of death. Don't be afraid of death. And I'm like, okay, I can see how you'll get a greater sense of freedom and spirituality from that. That is a very finder mindset, right? Um, but and I mentioned this is like how, and I mentioned this to him directly as like, how much are you willing, how much pain are you willing to suffer to maintain that viewpoint, which is kind of why I stop at level 10. Um, and I think that's why we differ so much. He's going further into non-duality, where even like the narrative self devolves, and not only that, but like the thing creating the narrative self devolves, the thing behind it. Me, I try to go back to duality and embrace the idea of duality. Um, like I try to have duality and non-duality work simultaneously. Uh, so we're on different sides of the fence. Uh, where was I going with that? Um, pain is still pain, but yeah, attachments aren't a bad thing. Like, if everything is everything and everything is nothing and nothing is everything, and instead of truth is experience, experience is truth, then the attachments you create are also part of your experience, right? In a weird way, because level 10 should kind of circle back around to level 1, and all of the things that you care about should also matter in the grand scheme of everything, right? Like that's how my theory of level 10 works, is that like it's okay to live in the world that we live in, right? It non-duality collapses. Non-duality doesn't matter to the experience that we have right now in the moment. Um, so, and I think that's kind of the flaw that I see in the finders in general, is that especially when you go up to like level 4, level 5 and beyond, is that, and I let me say I do agree that I do think I hit 9.4
Yeah.
plus when I
Yep.
did that
Yep.
level when I hit the 0 point. I was
I think so
doing
too.
yeah, going way beyond what I was prepared for and ready for. Um, again, the conclusion I came from that is like, at today right now is that it's okay to just be who you are and want what you want and to be sad, to be happy, to make mistakes, to have successes. No, let life be life, right? And if it like if a child makes a mistake, right, and does something stupid, it's okay to be upset that the child made a mistake and did something stupid, right? Like the idea of enlightenment is that like if a child like the general idea seems to be like just let it be, right? It's okay they made a mistake. They'll learn eventually. Like no, sometimes a child needs to be punished for making the mistake. Sometimes they don't. You know, that's the difference between level 6 and level 9 thinking, I guess. But yeah, I think that's kind of like my overall conclusion of the book is that like
It's okay to be that woman who's standing there at the door with her daughter, and her daughter's like, "Leave me alone," and the mother's like, "No, you want to get it back." She's
yeah.
like, "No, you should do like whatever." And she has access to all those previous experiences and frameworks and models. It's like, but at the end of the day, she's just like, the end of the day, not only am I still human, I'm still this specific human,
Yeah.
and that's just darn fine with me.
Yeah.
Doggone it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
so
I think go ahead and finish your thought.
well, I guess in a weird way, maybe the reason I don't fit, there is a chance, and I can see this, that I've gone too far into the finding to where I'm just kind of like trying to reject all of it.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, continue your thought.
Yeah. First, so I and again I like when I listen to your experiences and the way the terminology and the symbols you use to describe the experience and the diff and how the way you relate to your experience differed substantially from other finders in our community, such as Draco, such as AJ, such as Odalev. I would say even myself now. It's that it was clear that there was something meaningfully distinct between whatever spiritual experiences that you had and then the ones that we had.
Yeah.
As like, and there's a certain preference and Regent too. There's a certain preference for like a positive emotional valence, even if we code it with the term contentment or whatever that we have in relation to it that differs substantially from your own. But all of us, I would say, are before 9.4.
Yeah.
We're all on that side of 9.4.
Yeah.
And then um when I heard when I so first so I heard about your experience first, and then a few months ago I read this book, and then you came into mind when they started describing the levels plus four above. But I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then I talked to you a little bit more about your experiences, like the 0 point. It's like everything being nothing, and kind of the struggle you had to be kind of trying to convey, like the nothingness of everything, and the everythingness of nothingness, and the I, right? But
Mm-hmm.
from a place of personal experience, right? And I have enough of young and enough of listening to you guys, and now enough of my own lived experience to where I can. There is some part of my lived experience that can meaningfully map onto some of those symbols,
Mm-hmm.
but from you it was kind of the other way around. It's like you had an experience that you were struggling to encapsulate in terminology, but even then, most of the people in our community could not meaningfully relate to the way, like you would describe it to them, and then they would reframe it, and you're like, no, and then you try to reframe it, and then, right? It's like, but I've never had that experience with anybody else, and they've never had that difficulty with each other. Like they can all kind of see
Yeah.
and map on meaningfully, like even with Regent, right? Like even with Regent, I can kind of, it's like, but I still can't quite grasp whatever it is that you experience, right?
Yeah.
And so my intuition was he must have somehow wound up on the other side of the point four gate somewhere,
Yeah.
and then just was like, "F this," right? Get me
Yeah.
back over. Let me be human again, right? And then get me
Yeah.
back over here.
Yeah.
Um, and so 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 I guess the two of us, for whatever it's worth, are agreed that something like that seems to be the most like our current most likely explanation for your experience, right? Because even in the book, he talks about how he hasn't come across anybody yet who's landed past point four initially,
Yeah.
right? And but then that would correlate with your experience in the LC space because we've got quite a few finders there, and you're the only one who has your specific. So it just might be you just like it just might be that unusual.
Yeah.
And you were just lucky enough or unlucky enough to experience it.
Yeah.
And in terms of Regent going deeper into states of non-duality, kind of maybe he's pushing up into level. It sounds like he's pushing beyond level 3. It sounds like he's going to level 4 or 5 plus, right?
Yeah.
But he still lives in a society. He still has to survive ostensibly, right? But now he's beginning to care less about surviving ostensibly, about life and death, about social norms.
Yeah.
Um, he's already ENTP, right? It's like
Yeah. Oh, you're cutting out, Liquid. When Bro came in, it cut your feed. Hi, Bro. Oh, I can't hear anything. One second, let me disconnect again and come back.